Hello, everyone, and welcome to ALD No Limits. I'm Christie with ALD.
And I'm Ken with AMN. Our guest this episode is Richelle. Welcome to ALD No Limits.
Thank you.
Yay! We're so excited to have you here, Richelle. You have quite a story to tell. And we've heard it before. We heard you speak at ALD Alliance a few years ago. And we're eager to listen to what you have to say today. So, but before we get into your ALD journey, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who is Richelle? Where are you from? What do you do for work? Any fun hobbies?
Well, I'm Richelle Brooks from up near Rochester, New York. I'm an operations manager for a private collection agency collecting on the IRS contracts. So beware all you taxpayers. I have 4 beautiful children, and for hobbies, I love music, enjoying concerts and going out with friends, playing darts, just really enjoying life and every day because it's the small moments that add up. And obviously, after something like ALD, you really do start to appreciate the little things and just enjoy life.
Yeah, I love that. Who's your favorite band? Do you have a favorite?
I don't think I have a favorite. I love all genres of music. Like I saw George Strait to Nelly to Jesse Murph last year. So it's all over the place.
Nice. Love it. So tell us about how you first learned about ALD.
So when my youngest, Connor, was born back in February of 2017, about a week after he was born, I got a phone call from a newborn neurologist up at Strong and was told that my son was picked up on newborn screening for a condition called Adrenoleukodystrophy. I had asked what that was, and she's like, well, if he's playing sports or gets upset, his adrenal gland just may, stress him out, but you can Google it. And then I'll see you, in a few days. So we ended the call. I Googled it. And to my horror, all these precious boys are populating up in diapers with tracheas and feeding tubes, not able to walk, talk, do anything on their own, and then eventually dying. So at that moment, I was like, my son was just handed a death diagnosis. Like, my son's going to end up like this and die. So when we met with the neurologist, she's like, bring your older boys too, because they should be tested. So my middle son had already been tested by newborn screening in 2014. Thankfully, he's negative. My oldest, Jaden, however, who was born in 2009, also was positive for ALD. So thankfully to Connor's diagnosis, we were able to also diagnose my son, my oldest son, and myself. And after a meeting with a neurologist, I told her, my son was handed a death diagnosis. Why can't we just get him a bone marrow transplant now? And she said, with him being so young and there's so many complications and risks to bone marrow transplant, sometimes you only do it if necessary. So she's like, well, just monitor him, about 18 months old, start MRIs and just, watch, because the MRI will show symptoms of the disease progressing before any symptoms physically. Well, not the best visit. So thinking about it, I couldn't find much else other than the pictures of the boys and what the disease itself does. And I told myself, I'm going to fight for my kids' lives. I'm going to, knowledge is power, and I'm going to do everything I can to find out what I can about this disease. So I went to Facebook and I typed in ALD, and thank God the ALD community popped up. Became a member, saw all these families with all sorts of experiences, and I had reached out to, I'll say her name is Lindsay. Her son was also picked up on newborn screening, was the 4th boy to be actually positive, another Aiden's baby, as we call them. And she informed me of mostly everything I needed to know. She was more knowledgeable than all the specialists around our area. And I watched for years while my son was being monitored, everyone's experiences, who the best ALD specialists were. And unfortunately, when Connor was 5, that September MRI had picked up that the disease progression had started. We were actually in the ER because we had an endocrinologist visit that day, and he was very tired, sleepy, and she thought he was actually having an adrenal crisis. Sent us down to the ER. So as he's sitting here laying in my arms, getting poked for blood draws to make sure everything was good to go, my chart popped up, and I thought it was his results about his adrenal insufficiency potential crisis here. So I opened it, and there was his MRI results saying T2 flare and a bunch of other stuff. But I had obviously seen other families, what that meant. My heart dropped. I called in the head nurse, and then I was like, because it was after 5 o'clock, I said, I need to get in touch with Dr. Thompson Stone right now. His MRI results just came up. He has cerebral ALD. I need to talk to him. So thankfully, the nurse was very kind, got a hold of the neurologist. He had called me immediately and said he hadn't even seen the results yet. But I was right that the cerebral disease had began. And so we had talked about our options. I did want to go out of state. The only issue is at that time, I was not an operations manager and only had state Medicaid. So, and they had told me before, going out of state, because you can get a bone marrow transplant in New York, they will not cover any transplant outside of New York. So we were going to do it at Strong Hospital, at Galisano's Children's Hospital, because they do have a cancer center there. Met with Dr. Andolina, wonderful oncologist, but he said, out of respect for Connor's life, we're not going to do the transplant here. We've never done an ALD transplant. We wouldn't even know where to begin with any of the regimen or anything. We're not going to do it. So thankfully, they wrote up a letter and sent us to Boston. So thankfully, Katie got us in to see Dr. Ikler about 2 weeks later, along with Dr. Duncan, wonderful superwoman, I call her. And thankfully, while in the process of waiting for that Boston trip, the FDA had approved Skysona. I could not tell you how relieved I was. We had not known if Connor had a match yet. We tried his sibling, Braden, that does not have ALD. He's only a half sibling, so he was a half match. We went and saw Dr. Ikler. We asked, should we go with a traditional bone marrow transplant? Should we go with the gene therapy? And Dr. Ikler said, there's no reason why we can't explore both options, right? And he asked Connor at 5 years old, he goes, Connor, do you know why you're here? And Connor said no. And I told Dr. Ikler, how do you explain this situation to a 5-year-old? And he looked at Connor, he goes, Connor, you have a boo-boo on your brain and we're going to fix it. And I still love that line just because it's so simple, where a 5-year-old can understand that. And it's true. And we met with Dr. Duncan, and can't ever say enough words about her. My soul lights up when I talk about Dr. Duncan. I call her the unsung hero because in the ALD community, everyone knows the neurologist, right? You can name off all the ALD neurologists, but when it comes to the oncologist and all, no one ever knows, until you have to be in that spot. But really, they're the unsung heroes because they do a lot of the hard work. But met with her, and she said, she went over the pros, cons, in depth of, a traditional bone marrow transplant versus gene therapy. We had not had the results back yet for Connor. So we went back home, waited till the results came back. I was at work, went out to my car, and so I had a missed call from Dr. Duncan. So I called her back. She picked right up and she goes, Richelle, I want to tell you, first of all, we don't have a match for Connor. Second is Braden is only half match. He's not a very good match. And I started crying. And she goes, I'm sorry, Richelle. I feel like I'm giving you blow after blow. And I said, Dr. Duncan, these are not sad tears. They're happy tears because before, when you've had to have this conversation with parents, there was no option. There was no other option, right? You took what you could get and hoped to God that the outcome was the outcome you hoped for. But we had a new option, gene therapy. And it was just a sigh of relief knowing that there was always another option there now. So we proceeded with that option. And we had to wait till January because, again, his MRI was in September. We had to wait till January because that's when the FDA had approved for the gene therapy to go live. But in the process, Boston Children's Hospital got right to work. They have an amazing insurance team because our biggest fear now, even though gene therapy was available, it's still going to be paid for, right? It has a very high price tag. And we had New York State Medicaid. So not only are we traveling out of state, but now asking them to approve this therapy that no one's ever paid for. They actually had one of the head of the hospitals call the Medicaid, the managed Medicaid, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Highmark in New York. And that Thanksgiving week, we got the approval from New York State Medicaid, Blue Cross Blue Shield, that they were going to cover the gene therapy. Best Thanksgiving ever. And so in January, when it could start the first week, we went right to Boston Children's Hospital. He started the apheresis where they take out the blood, his own blood cells. 2 months later in March, we were back there getting his beautiful cells back with the new Skysona treatment. And here we are 2.5, yep, right there. Boston Children's, Boston Globe was excited about this. And even they had brought up the price of, the gene therapy. It was $3.1 million. But if we're going to spend money in this country, it should definitely be on our children, number one.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And
yeah,
here we
that's
are.
pretty amazing. Just, this photograph, this story, and really he was the first boy treated with the commercial Skysona. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there were trials, and after the approval in September, like you said, Connor was the first boy treated, which is just incredible. And incredible for you all to make that decision and without hesitation and just to get the good news about the insurance. Holy cow. That's huge. So sorry, continue.
There is obviously pros and cons to both. So obviously with a traditional bone marrow transplant, you have a very high risk of graft versus host disease where the body will attack the donor cells. And again, I had paid attention for years on everyone's experiences, and a beautiful boy. And I don't think Jennifer would mind me discussing Dalton. I saw his story and what graft versus host disease did to him. And because of that story, I chose gene therapy. Because there is a risk of MDS, cancer, with the Skysona because it's not perfect, right? There's pros and cons to everything. You read even a Tylenol bottle, but my dad was a PA, and he said when it comes to medicine, you have to look at risk versus benefit. And if anything, even if Connor did develop MDS, I thought we're getting at least a still good few years of his life. And I'm so glad we made that decision. 2.5 years later, you can't even tell that there was anything wrong with him. He's a happy, normal boy playing Roblox. And the most wonderful thing is that at the end of the school year, they handed out awards to the kids. And his was the happy reward because, and she said she missed his teacher, that she missed him riding the school bus because everybody was having such a frustrating day after school, trying to get all the kids on the bus. And right before he got on the bus, every day he would turn around and yell, "I hope everybody has a wonderful life," and then get on the bus. And especially knowing what he had went through. Yeah, the teachers were just like, he's just a bundle full of life. Like he truly enjoys life. He doesn't take life for advantage. And at such a young age, because he's 7 now, he knows how fragile life even is. And if it wasn't for the ALD community, we wouldn't be here. I always want to thank Alisa because ALD didn't just come around right in 2014. It has been there for years. When you get introduced, you learn about the movie Lorenzo's Oil.
Yep.
How many, boys have we had to lose? And Alisa was the first woman to stand up with all of her heartbreak, all of her loss, and do something about it. And I tell her, that is such a true, amazing strength you have, because nobody else did that. And how many boys has she saved now because of that? And I can never thank her enough, because I know to this day her heart breaks. But I know that she is so happy and fulfilled seeing all these other boys that are being saved because of what she's done. And thanks to Aiden. So I want to always give out a shout out to Alisa, because if it wasn't for her, none of us would be here, right?
100%. Yeah.
Absolutely.
She is an angel. Yeah.
She is. Yeah.
And I will say too, again, you brought up Lindsay's story. Like, yeah, when I met her it was very early when I started getting into it too, and I was trying to take it all in. And I've had people would reach out to me, as a man, and they have their child, they just got diagnosed, and I'm like, all right, go talk to Lindsay. And she was awesome, and she always helped them out. I'm like, I don't want to speak out of place here, because my situation's a little different. But yeah, there's so many great people in this community, and it's a community we all didn't want to be in, but here we are. And
that's right.
I agree. And actually, when I was at Boston Children's Hospital, one of the nurses said, there's a lot of rare diseases. There's even the cancer, she said, but out of all of the communities, the ALD community is the most closest community there is. We're family. I call it ALD family. And I still talk to Lindsay. Matthew's doing great. And going into the transplant itself was so scary. And, Jillian, she was amazing. She sat on the phone with me for an hour explaining the process, and that's, and just comforting me knowing that I was doing that. And even Katie Becker, Dr. Ikler's nurse.
Yeah.
She looks at us more than just patient's mom. She is mom to mom heart. So even the doctors, the nurses, so wonderful. Dr. Ikler even came home after the ALD Alliance conference, after when we had filmed Connor's transplant on a Sunday, just to say hi to Connor and to see how he was doing. I love the Boston team. They are so humble. They actually care about the children's lives. And even Dr. Duncan said that. She said, Richelle, I don't care where these boys go for treatment, as long as they get treatment. She's gone to Taiwan, just to get newborn screening, certain other countries. And we're not even finished here. Thankfully, we're almost to the 50 states, but can't say enough about the Boston team. Thankfully, I have a good, strong team here in Rochester, too, a very good neurologist and oncologist and endocrinologist here. It's funny, our endocrinologist actually was a resident with Dr. Duncan at Boston Children's Hospital. So we have all of that.
Cool. Small world, right?
Very small world, and especially the ALD community. And I know for any other parents out there that are, because I still have parents reaching out to me now, why gene therapy? Aren't you scared of cancer? And I said, I was never scared of cancer as much as I am of ALD. And again, if anything, I bought my son time. I'm more scared of graft versus host disease. And yes, the price tag is hefty, but even talking, you look at a traditional bone marrow transplant, you're still looking at $800,000 to $1 million.
Yeah.
Not to mention the aftercare, right? Graft versus host disease medications that they have to take, the feeding tubes they have to take, going constantly for the blood draw. They don't have an immune system for a year. 60 days, and Connor was back to being in the world. Like nothing happened. So you really have to decide what's best for your kid. And I think the best way to do that is not even to talk to the doctors, but to talk to parents and why they made the decisions they did. Because that's what I did. I made an educated guess. And even though the doctors were very thorough, again, it was stories like Dalton, beautiful boy there too, that I chose gene therapy. And a million times over, I would choose gene therapy again. And I won't, even if Connor does unfortunately develop MDS, I still wouldn't change it, because he still has another chance at another transplant. Maybe by then he'll have a match. So if anything, we bought him time.
I feel like I can breathe a sigh of relief. Like when I hear you talk about this, like, because I've said this before, but in my family, my son, he is 5. He's going into kindergarten this year. And we did HLA. His sister's not a match. She also has ALD, so it's complicated. But he didn't have a lot of matches in the system at the time when we were first doing. And I know that can change, but I've always like had this like leaning towards gene therapy because of what you've talked about, Richelle, and how positive your experience has been. And I've really looked up to you as somebody in the community who, is so positive and really has told your story with authenticity and like not shied away from the difficult moments, but also like, can shine a light on, gene therapy is, a valid option for those of us who don't have other options or who don't have matches. Right. And so I really appreciate, what you've shared today.
Well, thank you. And again, I know I just try to give back because I got this far with our son, my son, because of ALD community. And even now when I will respond to any parent that messages me with any questions, because I think, again, if you ask your doctors at home, they don't know the right answer. Not that I will, but I at least know where to go to get it.
Right. And you're so knowledgeable and resourceful. So can you tell us a little bit about like the rest of your family? So you said you have ALD, your older son, does he get monitored? And are there other family members?
Yeah. So my 17-year-old now, thankfully, has still not developed the cerebral form. And to be honest, once he reached that age, about 12 years old, I thought he's safe, right? The only thing we really have to worry about is AMN. And not that I'm not going to take away how awful that is either, Ken. Because
it could be worse. It could be worse, obviously, as we know.
Right. I mean, I will take AMN over the cerebral form for my son, especially because it's not until you're older versus such a young child. My dad had got tested. He was negative. And I had tried to talk to my mom's side of the family, including my half brothers and my mom. And her and I have had very difficult conversations. It was scary to her too, but people deal with things differently. So unlike me, who dove right into it, took in everything, she said it intimidated her, especially when I did talk to her about things because she didn't understand it. So she kind of put her head in the sand. So my brothers were never tested. And then about 2 years ago, my brother had started declining. They had attributed it to his grandmother passing away. He was depressed. They thought he had been drinking a lot. He was getting pulled over for drinking and then got very depressed. So they admitted him to a psychiatric unit. I don't know what prompted them to, but I believe my half brother said, is there any way it could be like related to ALD? Because, I know my nephew has had that. So they did an MRI. Lo and behold, and again, God has been with me throughout this whole process. The same neurologist that was doing resident work with Connor's neurologist at the time, who saw Connor's MRI the radiologist, I should say, who saw Connor's MRI, saw my brother's MRI and said, yes, this is definitely ALD. So he had a little bit of experience with that. So I'm glad to at least also bring the experience to the doctors so that if they ever have to run into this again, that they have. And I know that Rochester also has a leukodystrophy clinic. They've actually teamed up with Hunter's Hope, with Jim Kelly's foundation for Krabbe, but obviously they do all type of leukodystrophies. Yeah. So if anyone is in that area, they can also go to that area. But they did the MRI, and I had told my brother, my good brother, well, not good brother, but the brother who doesn't have symptoms, hey, he needs to be tested. And he's like, well, yeah, they said they would do that he could do that when he gets out. They're going to send him to counseling. I was like, nope. So I myself went up there the next day and advocated for my brother. And I told the psychologist, I said, no, my brother needs to be, his adrenal glands need to be tested. He has to have his ACHT, tested, make sure he doesn't have adrenal insufficiency. He needs needs to be seen like immediately. And he's like, yeah, he can get his levels tested, when he gets released. I said, no, I'm calling Boston right now. Called Katie Becker, ran twice, I think, and she answered. Hi, Richelle, how are things? And I love that about Katie. She'll always pick up. And I told her this, what was going on. She's like, let me talk to him. So she talked to the psychologist. And thank God he listened to her. Thankfully, he doesn't have adrenal insufficiency. He does have AMN. But I also did get, Katie got him in to see Dr. Ikler. His latest score was an 11. But that was just on the cusp of being able to be in the clinical trial there for, how many kind is it?
Calyx? Probably
Yeah.
probably
Is that Minorix?
Minorix,
Yeah. Yep.
I'll admit I don't dabble into the adult form, and I think that was my downfall because I was just focused on my children versus the adult form.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's been on that. It's just hard with that being a clinical trial. They have to have a, placebo. So there has to be a controlled study. So, but he is declining. At 36 years old, he has 2 children under the age of 5. His wife left him. He has to have in-home hospice care. He can't walk without a walker and assistance. He has to be in a diaper the whole time. He has to be fed. He sleeps constantly. And like I was saying, I actually saw him a couple weeks ago and he didn't even recognize me. I had to tell him who I was and I asked if he was scared. And he said yes. Very heartbreaking at 36 years old to see that. And my mom cries all the time. She apologizes to me. She said, I wish I would have listened to you. I just couldn't think of anyone in my family who has had this. But knowing as much as I do, unfortunately, when your newborn screening comes back, most patients never heard of this, right? Like it's not a common thing in the family, or they've been misdiagnosed. And I think that's what happened with my uncle, my mom's brother, who also has to walk with a walker since his 40s. And they thought it was Lyme disease. But come to find out, it is also AMN. So that is why newborn screening is so imperative. So for any family members out there listening, or any ALD families out there whose family members don't listen about getting tested, please contact me. I'll, give pictures of my brother, use my brother's story, because I wish my brother would have listened, because we would be having a different outcome for him, unfortunately. But at least maybe we can take this and get your family members tested.
Yes, absolutely.
Important message. Wow.
Yes.
So from the time your brother was in the hospital, that time when they decided to do the MRI and you had called Katie and they did the blood test and all of that, to now, how much time has passed?
About 2 years. 2 years this next month.
Okay.
Seeing rapid.
Very rapid, because when I seen him, he was like, thank you, Richelle. Thank you for coming. Like, finally, someone who knows what's going on with me. And he was able to talk. He could still walk. Obviously, it wasn't, he had to kind of drag one foot. But now he's not even vocal. Uses a word, 2 words. Like I said, and you have to cut up his food to feed him. Like, it can't even be like regular. So very rapidly. My other brother does think that he is actually taking the medication, or they think he would have been gone by now. So they do think it's at least slowed the disease progression down, but they still have only given him 1 year to 2 years to live.
Sorry, Richelle.
Yeah.
Especially as an older sibling, because you always think that you'll be the first to go.
Right. I mean, this goes back around where Alisa, again, it is so important because, this is obviously as long as they listen, but at least just knowing, it gives people a chance to potentially change the outcome, you know.
Right, because hopefully when we get all 50 states tested, there won't be a question of being
Yeah.
in that.
Right. Yeah. And what about you? Do you have symptoms that you
I
would
do
like
have
to share with
symptoms.
us? You don't?
No, I do.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes, I have neuropathy in my feet. Where like the sides of them are numb. I have where I go to the bathroom a lot, so I am on medication for that. Otherwise, I'd be going every 20 minutes.
Oh, what medication? Just share with us.
It's Tamsulosin is the generic name, but it's also called Flomax, I believe. So
I think I've seen it on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for urinary urgencies, right?
Yeah. Yep, the urologist put me on that. It has helped tremendously. I actually have weakness in my hands. I don't know if that's a common thing, but that's definitely happened. I drop things constantly. I will sometimes lose my balance. I sometimes have, bowel incontinence. And I'm constantly tired. Like my neurologist here at Rochester has put me on modafinil, which they give to narcolepsy patients to keep them awake, but that helps.
Oh,
Yeah, the fatigue is unreal.
And they're not doing, obviously adrenal insufficiency in women is not common, but we've had some guests, female guests that are, they keep kind of bringing it up thinking that adrenal insufficiency could potentially be part of that. The fact that you're tired all the time, which is a symptom in men who have, adrenal insufficiency. But
I've heard it more and more, honestly.
Yeah.
Just women with adrenal insufficiency too. So it's interesting. I mean, of course you're exhausted though, mom of 4. Like
there could be that too.
Yeah. But I think it's really smart when, you have these health issues to look into them and address them, which sounds like things that you've been doing.
Yeah.
Because I've been peeing myself since I was 12 years old and I should be on medication. So thanks for giving me the name of that medication. But
you're welcome. It definitely does help. But I put myself on the back burner for a very long time because Connor was priority. But I do suggest taking care of yourself too. And I know that my mom she was an EMT for years, her whole life, and she kept falling. I mean, she wouldn't go to Walmart and would fall. So she just had to go on disability too because she has the same issues and she's 60 years old.
Wow. So has she been tested officially or no?
They told her she didn't have to get tested, but 2 of her children having the condition, they pretty much said you have it.
Yeah.
Especially with all the symptoms. So
makes sense. And then what else do you do to kind of stay healthy, to stay upbeat? I really see you as being a positive person. So even with all these challenges, like what are some things that you do?
I try to stay active. I still try to eat very healthy because obviously the more weight you have, the harder it is on your joints, your body as it is. So, and that commercial, if you don't use it, you lose it type thing. Once you stop going, your body stops. It's true. I've lost a lot of weight in order to help combat the neurological symptoms. And for being positive, I think I know for sure. So the first ALD mom I actually met in person was at Boston Children's Hospital. And it was when we were there for Connor's transplant. And her son was there. But he was born in New Jersey, was not, tested. And it was too late for him. So he's in a wheelchair, couldn't talk, couldn't walk. So it was very bittersweet, right? Because I got to meet another mom who knows the feeling of having a child with ALD. And I hugged her, but you almost kind of get survivor's guilt is what Alisa calls it, because here my son is here having gene therapy, going to be saved, going to be a normal, healthy boy, and her son is not. And it's so crushing. So looking at all the parents who have lost their child and knowing that my son had a second chance at life, there's nothing more I can be positive about. Because there's nothing more scarier in the world than losing a child. And that's why I can't even imagine like what Alisa's gone through. And even Jennifer, who lost Dalton, she still, advocates. And if you have any questions, reach out to her and she keeps pushing. and she shares stories of her son all the time to keep him going. There's just so many strong women and men for you too, Ken, but women in the community,
There are a lot.
and it's just amazing and to see their strength, and it keeps me going. But just know that, and the community keeps going, right? We just got the gene therapy, now they're trying to perfect it. So just to keep going, and there was just more things approved, wasn't there? Is it for Cerebral then?
Liraglutazone. Yeah, once again, the Calyx, the Liraglutazone, they're pushing for that. And the one that they just approved by the EMA in Europe was for cerebral, as childhood cerebral. I think it said like ages 5 to 12. It's not fully approved yet, but they're pushing it closer to hopefully be approved. And then hopefully the FDA follows and does the right thing. But yeah, so we know all that moves slow, and this is not a disease where we need to move slow. We need to move faster, but that's a whole nother topic of discussion.
I agree. Just like with the whole Medicaid thing, thankfully we were lucky with that. But Boston does an amazing job. I know other parents who were very concerned about that came to me, who went to Boston, and there was a family whose two sons ended up having cerebral ALD, and they got them both covered through state Medicaid. So kudos to Boston, because again, a lot of hospitals will be like, sorry, it's denied, go somewhere else. And they really give it their best, and will make sure your child gets the treatment they need. And I think that's what's so hard too, because I did go to Family Advocacy Day with Boston Children's Hospital, because Senator John Cassidy is out there, and he said, these, not just for Skysona and gene therapy, but other clinical trial drugs are so expensive when they get out on the market. And who's going to be paying for that? Who's responsible for it? The federal level, should it be the state level? So we still have to get those kinks worked out too. But again, if we're going to put money into anything, it should be our children. They're our future. But if anyone's worried, oh my gosh, I Medicaid, maybe we should just go the simple route. There's no simple route with ALD. There's no perfect route, right? Gene therapy is not perfect. Bone marrow transplant's not perfect. But go to the best of the best. You gave it your all. So again, I would, hands down Boston Children's Hospital. I don't care what any other parent says. I mean, I do, but I know other stories. And these actors here are humble. They care about your child, and they will do everything they can.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And so you've talked a lot about the doctors who supported you, and that's so important, right? Who are your other team members who support you as you're managing life's ups and downs?
Oh, I guess my friends. But at times when, it's a different feeling. So before this happened, you really try not to think about ALD that much, right? Until it's that 6 months and it's now MRI time and your heart drops again. I don't have to have that feeling anymore with Connor. It's such a sigh of relief. Yes, I'm going to this MRI, but he's had several MRIs after. They're all good, so it's weight lifted off your shoulders. Not have to worry about my son, especially because, like I said, now that my brother has developed cerebral form, my oldest, who is now 17, it's oh my God, he could still develop the cerebral version. But other than that, if I need to talk to Kirsten Finn is really good. I think she's always there to listen or be very knowledgeable. Because I think, especially when it comes to something like this, about a question, the only one that's really going to know is, the ALD family. And I think that's important too, because other parents can be empathetic for you, but they don't know what you're going through. They don't.
Right.
So I'd say that, yeah. Other than that, I just try to not think about ALD when I don't have to, because I don't want it to consume my life. I am Richelle, Connor's Connor, Jaden's Jaden, my brother's brother. We are not defined by ALD. My brother kind of is, but other than that, live life, because at the end of the day, you can live in fear or you can live in hope, and that is a much better place to be.
Amen.
That is a beautiful message to all of our listeners, right? Live in hope, not fear. And, I certainly have struggled with fear, like you mentioned that every 6 months, the MRIs, it's tough, And yet I, think, be grateful, like have that gratitude and be hopeful. And that message is loud and clear from you. I love it. Love it. Love it.
Thank you. I know I thought newborn screening, when I got that, like I said, it was a death sentence. It was a nightmare, but it was such a beautiful blessing in disguise, that newborn screening, let me tell you.
Yeah. For real. It is. All right, Ken. Oh, that's the train. Can you guys hear my train? It's so loud outside my window.
Oh, wow. How close are the tracks?
It's like beep, beep. No, it's not that. It's not that close. It's like maybe a mile away, but it's very loud. It feels very loud, a horn. But I think it was signaling that time, Ken, when we have to ask Richelle the $1 million question.
It absolutely is. With all of that said, if you could live one day without ALD, what would you do? And that's a big, it's big. So I'll let you handle it.
That's actually a very almost loaded question, because for me, I choose not to live every day with ALD.
Yeah.
I don't, like I said, let it consume me. We've beat ALD for my youngest son, and I have hope we're going to beat ALD for my oldest son. And I do what I can to combat it, so I don't let it define me, and I just live life as we, don't have ALD.
That's a great response.
Yeah, it is. That's an awesome message. I love it.
It's like you owned it. You very much owned it, because, most people were like, oh, I'm going to go out for a run. But you're just owning it and just living it and just not even thinking about that. And that's a good response.
Because there are a lot of parents out there don't have this opportunity. That MRI is scary, but how many parents lost their children who didn't even have that chance to get an MRI for their son?
Right.
Exactly.
I'm just so grateful. And I think no matter what, that there's just been so many blessings through the storm that I can't be depressed. I have to be happy, like I've been very blessed.
Love it.
Absolutely.
Well, it's been so great chatting with you today.
Too.
Hearing your family's story, and we're gonna send your brother good vibes and love.
Thank you.
Because I know that is the hardest part for you all right now. And what is your brother's name?
His name is Frankie.
Frankie. Okay, that's good to know.
Yep.
So we will have Frankie in our thoughts and hearts. And we're so glad to hear that Connor is doing well and living life to the fullest. What grade will he be in this year?
He's going into third, because they had pulled him out of kindergarten, not knowing, obviously, if you're having a bone marrow transplant, you're going to be out all year.
Yeah.
But then we had to wait, for everything to get approved. So, but he's going into third, and I'll take it.
What a great year. That's awesome. Well, good luck to him this school year, and good luck to your
kiddos too. Good vibes for your son. I know 5 is the scary point, right? Because that's the point where it could begin.
Yeah, that's right. It's a little scary. So having that hope is really important, and acknowledging the privilege and, gratitude for the newborn screening is also always on my mind, for sure.
Agreed. Lisa's always in my thoughts. I just wish sometimes you could give someone how you feel and how much gratitude you have for them, and just pass it on to them without words, because words can never describe how thankful I am for everybody.
Yeah.
Especially her.
Yes, same. All right. Thanks to our listeners. If you haven't done so already, please like this episode and subscribe, right, Ken?
Right. Thanks, Richelle.
Thank you.